Hello, all you truth seekers out there. Welcome to another special edition on the Biblical Archaeology. This is lesser known Biblical Archaeology Part 2. And if you haven't seen the first one, make sure you go back and check that out. Some really great information regarding the timeline, the chronology of Egypt, Joseph, and Moses, evidence of them being in Egypt. It's really great stuff. They don't teach this in schools. They don't even teach this in colleges. This is scholarly stuff that kind of is brushed under the rug. I am bringing this out to you so that you can see and be aware of it, and you can pass it on. And we're going to continue to bring you cool information that people just don't know. Now, this is in our special edition section, which is mostly biblical, high-arching information. We also have some other, information in there, like the Georgia Guidestones. That's a good one. But we are going to continue to bring you cool ones, kind of focused on the Bible and waking people up to the information that just doesn't get put out there. It might be in some back pages, or it might be on, a small article here and there. Maybe it's just on the Jerusalem Post, but I am a connoisseur of information and I find it. And I also want to give credit to some of the people that this information is coming from, and you'll see that in our lesson for today. So the timeline, just to recap, from last time, the timeline is off about 300 years. And that will be our theme, is to remember 300 years. The biblical archaeology matches the evidence, and the Orthodox chronology, which is what the mainstream establishment has traditionally believed and still teaches, is incorrect when you use NASA data to play back the skies to see what was the skylines and the stars and everything that's recorded in history on tablets and manuscripts. They don't match up. So we are fixing that problem, and there is a movement out there to correct the chronology. All right, so let's jump in. Let's jump in with both feet. This is going to be great. Let me make my picture a little bit bigger so you can still see me. All right. Lesser known biblical archaeology. Part 2, we're going to look at Joseph, and we're going to look at Ramses II. Who really is Ramses II? We're going to look at King Saul and the evidence for King Saul. Many people don't even know that there's evidence out there for King Saul being a real character. And we're going to look at the Israelites as well. Now, there is one of my teachings on Saudi Arabia and this burnt mountain that the Bible says is Mount Sinai. There's no mountain on this planet that is like this mountain. It is a burnt mountain. All the rocks are burnt. And you can crack open the rock and see that the insides aren't burnt. And it's not a volcano. There is no recorded bombings on that mountain. And there's biblical archaeology all over it. There's altars and evidence of ancient civilizations. There's even a golden calf all that matches the Bible. And that is Mount Sinai. And there are a lot of movies that are coming down the pike that are going to be on the real Mount Sinai. There are YouTube videos on the real Mount Sinai. Project Truth Beam has done a teaching in the special edition section on the real Mount Sinai. So go check that out. It's pretty in depth. Of course, we can't cover everything just for time's sake, but it's some really deep stuff that people just don't know about. And this particular teaching that we're doing, part 2, is picking up after Mount Sinai. So we're doing Joseph and Moses in Egypt, and then we're jumping over Mount Sinai, and now we're picking back up. So if you want the full lesson, you got to watch Lesser Known Biblical Archaeology Part 1. Then you got to watch Mount Sinai. Then you got to watch Part 2, and Part 3 will be coming after that. I'm only doing 3 parts, so that's it. So suck it up. Suck up as much information as you can now. All right, let's get going. All right, so these are going to be some of my sources. At the end, I'll record my sources, but a shout out to David Roll, which is the bulk of this information. Miles Jones, he's put out a lot of good information for this too. It's incorporated in here. Douglas Petrovic, awesome guy. I know some people that know him, and really awesome guy, really high level. He's the top expert on the Tower of Babel. I don't think anybody else comes close to his level of understanding Tower of Babel. Israel Finkelstein, he's in Israel. He is an awesome scholar as well. I want you to remember 300. Let this stick in your brain. The timeline is off 300 years. 300. Never forget. All right, let's begin. So this is a mountain called Mount Hor. This is in Jordan. This mountain is very unique. It has something at the top of it. When people go to Petra and they look at the Nabateans, you can see this mountain across from them. And then if you look carefully, there's something at the top. Across from this, let me move my picture down. Across from this mountain, Mount Horeb, there is an altar. And you can see there's a platform. There's a platform to sacrifice an animal. There's a platform to collect its blood. There's a place to basically burn the animal. And this is across from that mountain. This mountain is called Jebel al-Mahaba, a high place at Petra, the Nabateans. And this faces the west towards the mountain. The 5th century BC. This is a while back when the Nabateans were there. And there's an overshot of the section where the blood gets pulled and then it runs down and drips so that they could collect it and put it on altars. That arrow indicates the Mount Horeb with the little white dot at the top. If you could have seen it before, there was something up there. What is that thing? And who are these Nabateans worshiping? Or what is the Nabateans worshiping? They're clearly facing the west, and they're facing this mountain with this thing at the top, and they are offering animal sacrifices. So, Mount Hor and the tomb of Aaron. Oh my, what does that mean? So, at the top of Mount Hor, let me move me over here. Mount Hor, there is a giant burial tomb, and it dates back really far. Some scholars date it to 1400 BC, which is just in line with Aaron and Moses. And the Bible says to us that Aaron was buried at Mount Hor. Let me move myself again. And that's another shot of it. I'm just all over the place. All right, there we go. In Arabic, Jabal al-Harun, which means the mountain of Aaron. And the Bible records that Aaron hiked to the top of the mountain and he was buried. Numbers 20, verse 22 through 29, Aaron died at the top of Mount Hor. These Nabateans are worshiping this mystery person at the top of Mount Hor. And the Bible records to us that Aaron was buried at the top of Mount Hor. He never came down. He hiked to the top and died. So here we have the tomb of Mount Horror. Now it's been renovated. People added to it. I think originally it was just white stones, and then they've added these other stones around it. It was actually a lot smaller in the time of Aaron, but you know how people are, they add to make it better. So Josephus also in the Antiquities 4, page 82 and 83 also records Aaron is buried at Mount Hor. And we're not going to read that, but just know that that's another place you can go to verify this. So we have the Bible, we have Josephus telling us a place and a structure. We go there and we find it. Moving on, now we're looking at Shiloh. This is an archaeological dig at Shiloh. They have found so much at Shiloh. It's amazing. It's really a lot of evidence. And of course, we know that the tabernacle was once erected at Shiloh. All right, I am going to pull up some Bible verses real quick. I wish I was better prepared, but here we go. Let me see. Joshua 18. Verse 1. And all the congregation of the children of Israel assembled at Shiloh, and they let the tent of appointing, the tent of meeting, dwell there, the tabernacle, and the land was subdued before them. Let's look at Judges 21. This is just more proof that the tabernacle was in Shiloh. And we read, so they said, see, there is yearly festival of Jehovah, that means God, Lord in all caps, in Shiloh, which is north of Bethel, on the east side of the highway that goes from Bethel to Shechem and the south of Lebanon. All right, so there we have the Bible is telling us that the tabernacle of God with the ark is in Shiloh. Now, this is a depiction of, this is actually a recreation. This is a recreation that is in Israel, in Eilat, and somewhere out in the desert, they have built a recreation of the tabernacle. It's really cool. This is a tabernacle when they were in the wilderness. This is the dimensions and everything. And notice these poles going around holding up the fencing. It's cloth with ropes and poles, but just notice those because that's going to be important. At Shiloh, they have found evidence of the tabernacle and the same direction it's supposed to be facing, and the dimensions all match. And this is a spot where the ark would have been sitting. And here are some remains of them cutting through the bedrock to erect the tabernacle of God. And this is Shiloh. And you can see there's some size comparison with the pick and also this person here, one of the archaeologists. And so Shiloh, the Bible says that the tabernacle is at Shiloh. We go to Shiloh and then we find the remains of the tabernacle. Now let's move on to Nablus in Palestine. Nablus is a city. It didn't used to be called Nablus. It's a modern name. Nablus is Shechem in the Bible. Shechem. And we know that Joshua came to Shechem, and we're going to read that now. And let me pull that up. Joshua 24, verse 27. And it goes as follows. And Joshua said to all the people, see, this stone is a witness for us, or to us, for it had heard all the words of Jehovah, it's God in Hebrew, Jehovah, which he spoke to us, and it shall be witness against you, lest you lie against your God. And that is at Shechem. Hold on, give me a second. I'm going to change versions here. Much more easier to read. All right, so we should see a standing stone. Joshua erected a standing stone. It doesn't indicate like God was too happy with this, but he allowed it. So there is a standing stone that Joshua anointed, and it is a memorial. And if we come to Nablus, the ancient city of Shechem, there is a big giant temple structure. The remains are still there, and a standing stone is still there. There's some comparison. Now this standing stone has been broken. It used to be a little bit bigger. You see some graffiti on it. The Palestinians don't care at all about this. They have no ties to it, so it means nothing to them. Now, the reason why this doesn't make headlines and is not really important to people is the fact that it's dated 300 years off. So they said, oh, well, it was way before Joshua even got here, so it's not important. Can't be Joshua's standing stone, even though it looks exactly like it and it's in the right place at the right, dimensions and structures and everything. But there is a temple. This was a rendition of what it would have looked like. There's a temple, and then the standing stone would have been out in front of that temple. And Nablus is situated between two mountains, Gerizim, Mount Gerizim, and Mount Ebal. Ebal is also in the Bible, and Mount Gerizim is also in the Bible. You can recall when Jesus went to the Samaritans, this is where they lived, and Jesus was going around teaching them, healing them, doing miracles, and they all said that he was the Messiah. They were following him. Now, what's interesting about the Samaritans is they altered their Torah scroll. They added a 11th of commandment. The Bible says not to add to or take away. They added a commandment that thou shalt worship at Mount Gerizim. And what that meant was during the feast times, they didn't go and assimilate with the Jews. They worshiped, instead of Jerusalem, they worshiped at Mount Gerizim. They have an altar at the top of Mount Gerizim. So when Jesus says, "I'm going," or when they say to him, "You're gonna spend the feast with us," and he said, "No, I'm going to Jerusalem," the people then were forced with a decision. Do we continue to follow the Messiah, which we've already admitted is the Messiah, the one that's healing and doing miracles, or do we want to stay with man-made tradition and follow man and religion? And sadly enough, they chose to stay and worship at Mount Gerizim. Very sad. That's what we have today, is the same dilemma. Do we really want to follow the one true Messiah, or do we want to just play religion? For the Samaritans, they made their choice. And I think everyone should make that choice as well. But anyways, so across from Mount Gerizim is Mount Ebal. And where you saw Joshua's standing stone is in the valley between the two. And here's a depiction of Shechem in the center in the valley. You got Gerizim on the left, and you got Mount Ebal on the right. Now, this picture on the right was taken by my friend who went to Shechem or Nablus. And that is a picture in modern day of Mount Gerizim. Now let's read Joshua 8 and verse 30. This will all make sense, trust me. And Joshua built an altar to Adonai, Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal, as Moses, the servant of God, had ordered the people of Israel to do. This is written in the book of Torah of Moses, an altar of uncut stone that no one had touched with an iron tool. On it they will offer burnt offering to God, Jehovah, and sacrifice peace offerings. So the Bible records that at the top of Mount Ebal, you should see an altar built by Joshua with uncut stone. What do we find at the top of the mountain when we go test the Bible? We find an altar still up there of uncut stone. And the reason why people don't really care about this is, again, the scholars all unanimously want to sell you the dating system. It's dated 300 years before Joshua. So it just can't be. It can't be the Joshua that you're thinking of. Pay no attention to these drums. The Bible says these places are real and you have all this rich history. And if you just use the Bible and go there, you'll find it. And it doesn't matter what the scholars say. A lot of the early biblical archaeologists, let me state that again. A lot of the early scholars were all biblical, and they all used the Bible to go find places. And it wasn't until modern times that people start to move away from that, because they had an agenda. They wanted to prove the Bible wrong so that people could be more heathen. And look at us today. But anyways, so in modern times, actually, Ron Wyatt in the 80s, he said, let me go use the Bible to find things. And God was guiding him. And he found all kinds of things. I mean, the guy found more biblical archaeology sites than any other archaeologist just using the Bible. I mean, it's amazing when you just let the Bible speak to you and then just go test it, what you find. But anyways, here's some more depictions and pictures of this altar. It is still up there. Now, this altar made news recently, maybe a month ago. It is May in 2021, but maybe a month ago, somebody went up there and was trying to destroy it. And again, this is in Palestine. These people don't really care about it, but very interesting. Now let's get on to Ramses II, King Saul and Israel. This is the next section of my presentation. All right, who is this guy? Is this Beethoven? No, it's not Beethoven. This guy is Jean-Francois Champollion. Really fun to say. He lived to be 300. I'm just kidding. No, he didn't live to be 300, but still, remember, 300 is our number. He was born in 1790, died in 1832. One of the founding fathers of Egyptology. This is the guy who started it all, the Egyptologist. He is the one they source and cite all the time. And the dating system, let me move this out of the way. Dating system that they use is from him, but it's also from one of his mistakes. So the temple at Karnak, this is where they pin their dating system. It all synchronizes and lines up on this one thing. So the temple at Karnak, the Bubastite portal. It's a really nice place to go and visit. And on that wall of the Bubastite portal is a description of the conquest of all these military battles. And the one that we are interested in is when its listing is number 29. Number 29 is what Jean Paulion, he translated it to mean Israel or Judah, the king of Judah. So here's what he translated it as: Yudah had Malkuth. And he took that to mean the kingdom of Judah. So he's taking this Pharaoh as one of those who conquered Judah. Later in history, they correctly translate it as Yad ha-Melech, the hand of the king. And we don't know who that person is, but it is not Judah. So Champollion, he mistranslated it. Later in history, we acknowledged he mistranslated it, but we never corrected his assumption. We never corrected his timeline. What does that do? So the Bubastite stele, and let me move this over here. Sorry if I'm just moving myself all around. Let's look at 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles. And verse Second Chronicles chapter 12, verse 1 through 4. And it came to be when Rahab had established the reign and had strengthened himself, that he forsook the Torah of Jehovah and Israel with him. And it came to be in the 5th year of the sovereign reign. Hold on, let me switch this. Okay, there we go. All right, let me start over. And after Rehoboam positioned a king as established, and he had become strong, and all of Israel with him abandoned the law of the Lord because they had been unfaithful to the Lord, Shishak, king of Egypt, attacked Jerusalem in the 5th year of the year of King Rehoboam, with 1,200 chariots and 60,000 horsemen. The innumerable troops of Libyans, Sukkites, and Cushites that came with him from Egypt, he captured the fortified cities of Judah and came as far as Jerusalem. So here we have the Pharaoh Shishak. By the way, that is Shishak on the page in front of you, as half man, half dog. And the Bubastite portal details Shishak and his conquerings. And here we have the Bible saying Shishak conquered Jerusalem. The Champollion said that the Bubastite stele was the biblical character Pharaoh Shishak, and that's why we had the translation of 29 to Judah. He's trying to match the Bible, but it didn't match the Bible because this is not Shishak. Champollion and others then concluded that Shoshank the first, which is what the Bubastite stele is for, Shoshank the first was Shishak of the Bible, but we know that he mistranslated, so it cannot be. Here's another fact about it. Let me just send me down. Here's another thing. This cannot be due to the dating is off more than 105 years and Jerusalem not being mentioned on the wall. So it cannot be Shishak. Here is a quote from David Roll. David Roll, the date for Shishak is given to us in the Bible. In the year of Rehoboam for 925 to 926 BC. Therefore, scholars take 925 and 926 as the last year of the reign of Shoshank I. All the Egyptian history hangs on this biblical synchronism. If that biblical synchronism is wrong, all the Egyptian history collapses. And that's, of course, what happens. Shoshank is not Shishak. They're not the same. And so once you remove those synchronisms due to the mistranslation, you no longer have them lining up, and you have to change it. So who was Shishak then? Shishak of the Bible. Let's look at this guy. Anybody recognize him? This is Ramses. Ramses II, 950 BC. But wait a second. We're told to believe that Ramses II is the Pharaoh of the Exodus, the Pharaoh of Moses. That is not true. It's impossible. The dating is very, very different. And we've already looked at that, so go back and watch some of our other videos. So here is Ramses' official title in Egyptian language. I'm going to attempt to say it. And just bear with me. You will be hearing ancient Egyptian language. This is how it sounds. Washmahariyaya, Shatapanarya, Riyama, Shisha, Mia Manana. And if you caught that highlighted section, that's Shisha. Let's look at some Greek. So the Egyptians had many names. They had two titles. One title before they became King Pharaoh, and the one afterwards. And then you had other languages and what they referred to Shishak, or the Pharaoh. So in Greek, it was Ramses. And that is how we pronounce it in English, is from the Greek. The Egyptian way of saying it was Ramesu. The Old Greek is Sesus or Sestris. Papyrus of Ashanti, Ashanti, and the first is Sisa. The Hittite treaty, cuneiform tablet, Riyama Shisha. The Kaf issue, this is just a note. Kaf issue in Proto-Sinaitic script ended up giving us a K at the end. This is just for the biblical people, biblical Hebrew guys. At the end of the biblical name, this is why we would get a Kaf at the end. Someone might have translated incorrectly. So it should be Shisha. And then Hebrew, it added a Kaf. And you can see here, Ramses' nickname is Shisha. So therefore, we have Ramses is the only pharaoh with the title that matches Shishak of the Bible, Shisha. So let's look at our new chronology. So we have Rehoboam and Ramses II now together. And we will see more evidence of this. The Orthodox Chronology has Ramses II, 1303, reigning in 1279 BC. 300 years off. Again, 300. Let's look at Solomon and his first marriage. This is an actual picture taken of Solomon's wedding. I'm just kidding. It's not the first picture. Solomon marries Pharaoh's daughter. In the Bible, it says Solomon marries the daughter, and we are looking for biblical evidence of the marriage of Solomon. All right, look at this. This is the Megiddo ivory, and it was found in Megiddo. Megiddo is a lonely little hill that had some buildings put up on it, and it is in the Valley of Megiddo. And the Valley of Megiddo is the battlefield fortress. There's been more battles in that valley than anywhere on the planet. I think that Megiddo has been destroyed 27 times. And Solomon had a fortress there. And as they were digging, they found this little ivory depiction. Here it is closer. You can see this is an Egyptian daughter coming up and presenting gifts. The Egyptian woman is royalty, presenting a lotus flower to the king of the Hebrews. Notice these birds. The king of the Hebrews is sitting on a throne with a lion, the lion tribe of Judah. And there are doves all around. Doves represents peace. Solomon comes from the root shalom. Both mean peace. Now let's read 2 Chronicles 8. 2 Chronicles chapter 8, verse 11. Solomon brought Pharaoh's daughter up from the city of David to the place he had built for her. For he said, my wife must not live in a palace of David, king of Israel, because the places the ark of the Lord has entered are holy. So we have Solomon marrying and bringing up Pharaoh's daughter, and he had a house built for her. Now, this is Saint Etienne Basilica. That means Stephen in Hebrew. I mean, Stephen in English. I think this is French. And it is a Catholic church built on the ruins of another building. And when they were excavating this area to build for this church, they found Egyptian artifacts. They found Egyptian pots. And this is an Egyptian deity with its upper body missing. It's a female Egyptian deity. Now they have found Egyptian writings. They also found some Proto-Canaanite writings. And there is a little bit more. They found an Egyptian tomb underneath, and they have built over top of it. If you go there and you ask nicely, they'll take you down there to see the tomb, and it all measures in the Egyptian cubit. And this is out of all the things that it could possibly be, and the way that it's positioned and the wealth that went into this building, it can only be Pharaoh's daughter, Solomon's wife. You know, he had many wives, but this is just one of them. Now let's move a little bit more. I want to get through all this information, so please just bear with my transitions. We're going to see a whole lot. So some more things that are not being presented. So scholars use this to disprove the Bible. This is really sinister, but the hymn to the sun credited by Pharaoh Akhenaten. Akhenaten came after Ramses, and they date him 1350. And again, we know that the timeline is off. This is Akhenaten over on the side. Let's move this down here. And you can see a picture of him. He is not a classic pharaoh. He is very different. He was a very strange pharaoh. He also is the pharaoh that tried to implement one single god. Before that, they all worshipped many gods. They worshipped the environment. They worshipped the earth. They worshipped the Nile. They worshipped, dung beetles. They worshipped everything: the cats, the dogs, the hogs, and whatever. I'm just kidding. So Akhenaten made a poem, or it might be a song, but it's a hymn. Actually, yeah, it's a hymn. It's a song. And it has the same overlays and same language as Psalms 104. but his is dedicated to the sun, and the sun being his one singular God that he was trying to force the Egyptians to worship. And they did it for a while, but once he died, they completely rejected it, and they even destroyed some of his remains and records and all that stuff. In the scholarly chronology, there is 300 years between David writing Psalms 104 and this hieroglyph. But with the new chronology, this explains the similarities to Psalms, as if David's Psalms influenced this hymn. So once you adjust the timeline, now you have them both arriving at the same time. And I would argue that David sent Akhenaten a copy of this, and he liked it so much that he just incorporated it as one of his own. And here is a picture of that hymn. Let's look at some of the similarities. I'm not going to cross over and change these, but I'm just going to read some of the golden parts. How many, and this is on the left, you have the hymn of the sun. On the right, you have Psalms 104. How many are your deeds? Alone, all the people, herds and flocks. How manifold are your works? Made them all. Earth is full of your treasures. Earth is in darkness. You make darkness. Every lion and its den, young lions and their dens. When you, they die. Supply give their food, supply their needs, their food. The entire land sets out to work. People go out to their work. The sea. The birds fly to their nest. The birds in the air in their habitations. Clearly some sort of thing is going on here. And that's just a little bit of it. So looking at the new chronology again, the corrected chronology, you have Akhenaten, you have Tutankhamun, you have King Saul and King David. And these guys are overlapping. Akhenaten and King David are overlapping. So let's talk about these things. These are the Amarna tablets. The Amarna tablets were found in Egypt and some other places as well. There's a total of 385 tablets. They're clay tablets. They're written in Akkadian, which is a language that people would use to do government and dignitary things between different countries. 20% are from the great kings of the north. 80% from the city-states rulers of Canaan, that means Israel, and Syria, north of Israel. The letters deal with a major revolt of the Habaru rebels. Habaru, what does that sound like? It's very similar to the word Hebrew. Now, the scholars, they say there's nothing to see with the Amarna tablets because we date them to be 300 years before King David, before King Saul. So they say Habaru is some other group of people that we don't know and nobody knows who they are. But if you're listening to foreign countries pronounce the word Hebrew, that one sounds exactly like a foreign country saying Hebrew. It'd be Habaru. And it's just amazing to me how people will just sit there and argue against that. I mean, there's nothing else that it could be. And also, it's a point to know that the Jewish people from the tribe of Judah, they didn't call themselves Hebrew. although they were Hebrews, they didn't call themselves Hebrew. The foreign people called them Hebrews. That was a foreign thing. So clearly something going on here. I find it hard for people to argue against that. The Amarna tablets. An Egyptian woman discovered them buried out in the desert near her village at Tel El Amarna in 1887. Their clay tab is written in Akkadian, which we've already discussed. The Orthodox Chronology dates them to 1360 to 1332 BC. Of course, we know that's not the correct dating. The Amarna tablets. So let me just give you some background. What you will see in these Amarna tablets, you will see people being mentioned that are biblical names. You will see biblical events happening in these Amarna tablets. You have a person who has a different name than the Bible gives it, but has the exact same career as King Saul. So it's almost as if you're reading the newspapers from the time that the Bible is discussing these stories. So these are extra sources outside the Bible. And they're really cool stuff. I really encourage everybody to look into them. The Amarna tablet, KTU 1.78, describes an eclipse happening on the first day of the lunar month at sunset. The day of the new moon of Hayirayu, sorry if I butchered that, was put to shame, eclipse, as the sun goddess set with Reshaf as her gatekeeper. So what we have is we have an eclipse being described in the Amarna tablets. Now we can use data software and we can find out when that eclipse was. In 1988, Wayne Mitchell, using a mainframe computer at MIT, retro-calculated the eclipse at Ugarit in the month of Hiyaru, which is May, April, to May 9th, 1012 BC at 609. That's a quote from David Roll. So we have a point where we can fix our dating system. The Amarna tablets describe a eclipse. We can use NASA data to play it back and see when that eclipse was, and that puts us 300 years off of what the original chronology, Orthodox chronology, says. Why aren't we fixing these timelines? There is an agenda. They don't want to fix the timeline. They don't want to fix it because every timeline around the world is synchronized to the Egyptian timeline. And there are 300-year gaps inserted into that timeline. If we remove those gaps and we fix the timeline, we have to fix all the timelines around the world. The scholars are lazy and they don't want to do that. Or the other answer is that they know it's wrong and they have an agenda to hide biblical information, biblical archaeology, and biblical truth. I think the latter. That is my personal opinion. All right, now let's look at these Habaru and this person called Labaya. King Labaya is what's being described in the Amarna tablets. Professor Oded Tammuz of Ben Gurion University. This is a quote. It says, "It is quite possible that the life and times of the historical figure of Labaya, the Habaru leader from the Amarna period, formed the basis for the biblical tradition of King Saul and the successful Hebrew revolt against Philistine. Oppression which occupies much of the first book of Samuel." So what he's saying is, going by the chronology, we can't say that they're the same person. However, they have the same career. And he's saying the Hebrew tablets came way 300 years before. So therefore, those stories must have added to the people creating the story of King Saul. But we know that the dating system is wrong when we adjust. So by default, once we have adjusted the timelines, we now prove that this professor is stating that they're one and the same by default. He doesn't realize it, but once you do that, you're now saying that they're same. You're linking them together. And I would agree, they are one and the same. Professor Israel Finkelstein of Tel Aviv University on Labiah and Saul. I see a great deal of similarity between Shechem under Labiah and his sons of the 14th century and Saul territory entity in the 10th century BC. Both expanded from their highland hubs to Gilead, east of Jordan, both threatened cities of the Jezreel Valley. Both Saul and Labiah established a large territory entity in the highlands. Both seem to have attempted to expand into the lowlands, and both failed to do so. Saul was the last Labiah, unless you adjust the timeline. Saul was Labiah. We're going to get into that. We're going to prove that. So Labiah, let's try to translate Labiah. Labiah means mighty lion or lion of God, lion of Yah. When you see Yah at the end of a name, that means Jehovah. When you see, there are two forms of Hebrew names to put God in the name. You either have Yahu at the end, like Madishahu, great singer, or you have a Yeh at the front. So like in Jesus's name in Hebrew, or Joshua's name in Hebrew, the full version is Yehoshua. Yeho is the first part of Yehovah, God's name. So you can either put it at the beginning or the end. And this is at the end. So you have Yah or Yahu. And so this proves that Labiah is, or Labiyahu is a name of God, and the first part being a lion. So this person is a Hebrew, clearly. The name evokes the Hebrew meaning and language and culture. Psalms 57:4. I lie surrendered by mighty lions. In Hebrew, it's labayim. Greedy for human prey. Their teeth are spears and arrows. Their tongues are sharp sword. The labayim would certainly be an appropriate name for the royal bodyguards of King Labiah. And of course, Psalms 57 is David. So let's look at some of the territory. King Saul and Labiah overlap the same cities. Now, I got this picture from David Roll's presentation. I want to give credit to him. He has done a masterful job on unraveling all this. So on the left is the ancient cities under King Saul. On the right is the names depicted of Labiah. And Labiah is occupying the exact same cities. Amazing how they're the same. Here is the kingdom territory. On the left is Labiah, on the right is King Saul. They're occupying the exact same territories. And notice what they do not occupy. They do not occupy Jezreel and the lower section. There's a spot where they did. The Jebus. King Saul As disloyal's men, let's now crack into the Amarna tablets. This one is 254. From Labiah to Pharaoh. Moreover, the king wrote about my son. I did not know that my son was consorting with the Habaru. All right, herewith hand him over to Adai, the Egyptian commissioner. This is Labiah saying one of his sons was consorting with the Habaru being King David and his army. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 30. Son of a rebellious slut. Did you know sluts in the Bible? That's weird, isn't it? Anyways, do I not know that you side with the son of Jesse, i.e. David, to your own shame and your mother's dishonor? As long as the son of Jesse lives on earth, neither you nor your royal rights are secure. Wow. Marna tablets say Labiah's son was consorting and backstabbing him. And here in the Bible, in 1 Samuel, Saul's son was consorting with David. All right. Megiddo joins the battle. This is Marna tablet 245. 254. Moreover, I urge my brothers, if the God of the king, our Lord, brings it about that we overcome Labiah, then we must bring him alive to the king, our Lord. But my mare was brought down, and so I took my place behind Yeshada and rode with him. However, before my arrival, they had slain. In Akkadian, it's Dahu, which is him, i.e. Labiah. So this is the slaughter of Labiah. This is one of the guys, rulers that are in the battle, the king of Megiddo. He's saying, look, I could have made it there, but my horse was shot out from under me. Make an excuse why he couldn't be there to kill Labiah. The king of Megiddo was in the battle that killed King Saul. So this is a synchronism of King Saul battling and fighting against the king of Megiddo. And here we have a tablet depicting that. Scholarly clarification. The scholars say that Labiah ruled from Shechem. They do not have any proof that Labiah ruled from Shechem, only that he was given the land to rule over. That is just a tidbit notification that everybody should be clear on, because that is something they made up. Here is a tablet 289 proving that, of Jerusalem, who says, are we to act like Labiah when he was given the land of Shechem to the Habaru? There you go. Amarna tablet, letter 288, the Jebusites king to Pharaoh. The land of the king is lost. All of it has attacked me. I am at war as far as the land of Seir and as far as Gath. The Habaru has taken the very cities of the king, my lord. All are lost. May the king, my lord, send his chariots to fetch me and my brothers, lest the Habaru kill us. This is the Jebusite king to Pharaoh saying, hey, we're surrounded. David and his people are going to come capture us. Of course, we know the story. The Jebusites were conquered by David. David's guerrilla army of the Hebrew, the Habaru. Here is 287. The Habaru are now attempting to take Jerusalem. What does the Bible say? David and his army take Jerusalem. Now let's look at King Saul and his capturing it by Gath. Amarna tablet 366. Shuwar Data writing to Pharaoh. Let the king, my lord, be informed that the Habaru, singular, who was raised up against the Vastal lands, the God of the king, my lord, deliver him to me, and I, king of Gath, have smitten him. It's saying that he died. Let's look at this. Tablet from Transjordan, Malbut, or Mutbal to Pharaoh. How can it be said in your presence, Mutbal had fled? He has hidden Ayav, as the king, my lord, lives. I swear Ayav is not in Pelel. In fact, he has been in the field, i.e., on campaign, for 2 months. Just ask Benanama, just ask Daud, just ask Ishayua Yad. Sorry, I'm butchering those names. Let's translate these names. Mutbal means man of Baal. And we're comparing these to biblical names. So in the yellow is the names recorded, the middle is the translation, and then the biblical character is on the right in red. Ayad means Yah is my father. Joab. These are all biblical people being named in the Bible. Ben and Ima, son of gods. And in Hebrew would be Benanah. Yeshuya is Yah saves. Jesse. Yishai. Dadua is the beloved, and that means David. So here we have people being mentioned that are biblical people. Saul's son that survived was Ishbal, that went to Jordan after his father was killed. Ishbal was Saul's son. Joab was David's military commander. Ba'anah was one of Israel's chieftains. That's, you can reference that, 2 Samuel 4:7. David, ruler of Hebron and son-in-law of Saul. Jesse is father of David. So let us recap now what we have seen. Possibly Aaron's tomb, tabernacle of Shiloh, Joshua's standing stone at Nablus, Joshua's altar at the top of the mountain, Shishak, Pharaoh's daughter's home and remains, Egyptian hymn like Psalms 104, the Amarna tablets matching King Saul and David. And here are some of my sources. I'm going to leave this up while I talk now. So one of the things I want to impart with you before we end this lesson is that there is so much evidence out there. It is not being revealed to the public. And the scholars will all fall back with saying, we find no evidence. The reason why they're saying we find no evidence is because they're looking in the wrong time period. If you never look in the right time period, you can honestly say we find no evidence. And they're doing this on purpose. They do not want to adjust the timelines They don't want to find the evidence. And in fact, some of the few scholars that have recently taken a look at it, as Manfred Bitek, one of the top Egyptian archaeologists today, has confirmed that the ancient Israelites were in Egypt. And he now is for adjusting that stance. And so people are changing their minds, things are moving, and people are coming around to understanding the evidence does support the Bible. The evidence does show that the stories in the Bible are true. And in fact, they should have never been questioned because they line up exactly the way the Bible says it. It does not line up the way outside sources say it. It does not line up as traditional archaeologists have said for many, many years. And my next lesser known biblical archaeology, part 3, will deal with the evidence showing that the archaeologists would state something as if it was a fact, that there is no, let's say, prim, which is a weighment coin for measuring, that there is no coin. The Bible mentions it. It doesn't exist. Therefore, the Bible is not true. They have done this over and over and over. And I have compiled a lot of those. And so I will walk you through those, showing where the scholars in the mainstream archaeology said that this doesn't exist. For example, they said King David never existed. And they said the city of David never existed until they found a stone with King David's name on it. And then they found the city of David with all of the evidence of David's city. So they keep getting proven wrong. And what I have done is I have collected those, and part 3 will be on that. It will be on walking you through all the times that I have put together that they have gotten it incorrect. They made a stance and they were shown to have egg on their face. And it's good to know that, because when you see people lying and they keep getting caught lying, should you continue to believe them? The answer is no. You should not continue to believe them. A liar that has been proven time and time again to be lying to you should not be believed anymore. And the reason why they're believed is because they are held up on a pedestal. They're put on TV. They make opinions, and they shouldn't be doing that. And they're telling the wicked people what they want to hear. They want to hear that the Bible is not true so that they can continue on living the way that they're living, wickedly. And so what I am going to do is I'm going to show you the evidence, further backing up and building a foundation for building your belief in the Bible. And this is all going to be big view, high level stuff. And eventually we will get into more detailed stuff. We will go to the Bible scriptures on an individual level, and we'll start working our way through some scriptures at one point, but that is to come. So I'm giving you all the resources to learn history, cultural context, and archaeology. And we are going to take you to some great places. This is a Project Truth Beam. I really appreciate everybody watching this and keeping up with all of our videos. And if you have any suggestions out there of things we should cover, please definitely put those in the comments, and we will check those out and see if we can package some good information and bring it to the world. As always, we encourage you to dig for the truth, seek the truth, and shine it out there to the world. This world is deceitful, and people are losing their sources of real information. And so we are trying to catalog those before they get swept under the rug and disappeared and destroyed, because there's people out there, even today, people are bombing Israel. The terrorists, when they marched in to Syria and all these other places, they destroy the archaeology and try to make it disappear. So we need to catalog all this stuff before it disappears. So that is my presentation on the Lesser Known Biblical Archaeology Part 2. And thank you for joining me. God bless.